At this time, the world is in a state of panic. People are wondering whether markets will crash further and whether the real estate market will fall. Everyone is asking what we should expect next and what is really happening in the world. The USA has carried out military strikes on Iran. Many people think this is simply a war involving Israel. But in reality, some analysts believe this is part of a larger strategy to pressure China. This conflict did not start in 2025. In many ways, it goes back to 1979, when Iran captured the US embassy during the Iranian Revolution. Since then, the United States has been determined not to allow Iran to become too stable or powerful. The argument is that a stable Iran could supply cheap oil to China, something the US would not want. Right now, China buys a large portion of Iran's oil, often at discounted prices despite Western sanctions. China has also paid for some of this oil using its own currency, the yuan, instead of the US dollar. This is where the larger economic competition between the US dollar system and China's currency influence becomes important. Now consider the Strait of Hormuz. Almost 20% of the world's oil passes through this narrow waterway. If it were blocked even for a week, it could severely affect Europe's energy supply, Japan's oil imports, and India's crude oil needs. Because of this, the strait is often seen as a critical control point for the global economy. Iran has repeatedly warned that it could close the Strait of Hormuz during a conflict. Many people also wonder why Israel is involved. Israel sees Iran's nuclear program as a major threat. If Iran were to become a nuclear power, Israel believes its national security and existence could be at risk. Because of this, Israel focuses on preventing Iran from developing nuclear weapons. The United States supports Israel, partly due to strategic alliances and shared security interests in the Middle East. Meanwhile, China publicly calls for global peace, but it is also expanding its economic influence. China has invested heavily in Iran, including building railways, ports, and infrastructure. With investments estimated in the hundreds of billions of dollars, this situation also relates to the global oil currency system. In 1974, Saudi Arabia made an agreement with the United States to sell oil in US dollars, creating what is often called the petrodollar system. This meant that countries around the world needed dollars to buy oil. Today, however, some countries are exploring alternative currencies for trade. Iran has traded oil in yuan. Russia has moved away from the dollar in some transactions, and other countries are discussing similar changes. Because of these shifts, some analysts argue that global competition today is not just about territory or religion. Instead, it is about energy, currencies, and global economic influence. In simple terms, this is not just a conflict of religion or ideology. It is a struggle over energy resources, currency systems, and global power.